HSBC is out with a new report on business travel. It's a fun read. It found that air travelers have built a soaring economy in the sky worth more than $400 billion, around the size of Norway. Now, the typical business traveler spends more than 50 hours in the air a year, spends around $90 while on flight. Joining us now for more is the author of that report, and she is Becky Moffatt, and she is HSBC's head of personal banking. Becky, great. I mean, it's a really fun report. It's a great and welcome report for August. I mean, what's amazing is that actually the economy in the sky, so the drinks we buy, the Wi-Fi, whatever we do up there, is worth $400 billion. How has that increased over time?
Increased enormously over time, and we're seeing new drivers of that growth. Wi-Fi is a really interesting one that you picked out there. So very new, and actually already driving 3% of all of the GDP spend as people are getting more and more connected as they travel. And what we're seeing is that actually business travellers are on average doing 2 hours of work on every flight. But it's not just business travellers. People travelling for leisure are also working whilst on flight. So this idea of downtime in the sky perhaps isn't quite as true as some of us think it is.
Yeah, in my mind, I have a long haul and it's relaxed 100%. So 50 hours per person in the air per year. How many flights?
On average, about 6.5, although heavy business travellers often doing up to 10 or more. Fewer for leisure travellers, but what we're starting to see as well is a convergence between business and leisure travel. So it's 6 in 10 business flights and are now being extended to include some leisure time at the end, so perhaps taking days at the end when you're in an exotic destination. So we're starting to see this convergence between business and leisure that perhaps we hadn't seen so much in the past.
So Becky, are we just spending more and more each year, also because they think of new stuff to sell to you whilst up in the air?
I think a combination of two things. One is spending more time in the air. Yep. So more people actually with some quite significant incomes. Yep. So on average, I think it's about $61,000 a year is an average income. So significantly higher than the global average. And so people with reasonably healthy incomes, time to spend, and buying duty free for themselves and as gifts for others. So more options to spend your money on, more time in the sky, and actually attracting a number of travellers with some disposable income.
It's a really fun report also because we travel a lot, and we actually, I mean, I've never thought about how much time I spend sleeping or looking at in-flight entertainment. So break it down for us. On average, a typical traveller spends 2.25 hours sleeping.
Only 2.25 hours sleeping. I was surprised. I think I would do more. About 2.25 hours sleeping, a couple of hours of working. Actually, a chunk of time spent watching films. Favourites seem to be action ones. Somewhat surprising when you're already 35,000 feet up in the sky, travelling at thousands of miles, hundreds of miles an hour.
Personal admin. 10 minutes looking after their personal admin. I love that. Deleting pictures.
Getting rid of things, clearing things out before you land at the other end. So yes, it's really many things that people are doing. And reading and taking some downtime as well.
I mean, this is amazing because it is actually another economy, right? It's as big as Norway. I guess 5-10 years ago, we just bought less things whilst we were up in the air because part of it was free and the business model was different.
Yes, so what we're seeing is that actually purchasing of duty-free goods is a very big driver. Purchasing of food is growing as people are actually having to buy more rather than the traditional model in the air of actually things being free. A relatively low proportion of spend on alcohol, given the fairly generous booze policies in the sky. Really interesting stat that we saw was actually there are apparently 3 million gin and tonics drunk a day up in Flyland. So
that's a lot of gin and tonics.
A lot of gin and tonics. So people are actually doing a number of things and spending and consuming in various different ways.
I mean, do people buy less duty free than they used to?
No,
they're buying more.
Spending more on duty free in the sky and in real terms. But as I said, there are more things that people can spend on now. So actually, Wi-Fi growing very rapidly over the last couple of years.
And 70% of all purchases are made with cards and not cash.
Absolutely. So replicating what we're seeing here in the UK around the growth of the cashless society, very significant proportion of spend all being done on card rather than cash.
Okay, so why do you do this? It's interesting because you kind of, this is also to do with I guess, giving advice. You're the head of personal banking, so it's giving advice on how to spend your money, right?
Really, it's, so HSBC has been sort of facilitating international trade and travel for over 150 years. We were really keen to understand much more about this sort of country in the sky. So 11.9 million people flying every day. It's the size of Cuba, so huge country. And what we really wanted to do was draw attention to the fact that there is such a lot going on in Flyland, contributing to the global economy, but also that actually there's a number of things that you can do to actually make travelling easier. And the kind of things that we're talking to our customer about is make sure your bank knows that you're travelling overseas, always pay in the local currency rather than in your own currency, and there's a number of simple things that you can do to actually make travelling easier for yourself.
So in the foreign currency, because that cuts down on the cost, right? On the exchange rate.
Absolutely.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. That was fun, Becky. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you very much for having me.